Good evening. My name is Clive Jones. I'm the chairman of the Runnymede Trust, and welcome to the biannual Jim Rose Lecture, and welcome to the LSE. I was here during the 1960s when there was nothing as grand as this. I just happened to be captain of the only Marxist rugby team in the world. Somewhat short-lived. Once we'd ended UDI in Rhodesia and the Vietnam War and various other things, we sort of resumed to a normal life. But it's great to be back at the LSE, and it's great to welcome you all here tonight. In 1968, Jim Rose and Anthony Lester co-founded the Runnymede Trust to counter racist propaganda and to develop programs for an increasingly diverse society. From then until his death in 1999, Jim Rose's contribution and devotion to racial justice and civil rights in the UK was unwavering. He was a key figure in race relations in Britain over 4 decades, and his seminal report, Colour and Citizenship, co-authored with Nicholas Deakin, has shaped the way we understand and think of racial equality today. And we're absolutely delighted that Jim's widow Pam is here with us tonight, along with his nephew Jonathan. Welcome. The Runnymede Trust established the Jim Rose Lecture, and there's the man there, to mark his enduring legacy. The inaugural lecture was hosted by Lord Anthony Lester. Since then we've heard from Lord Ali and Sally Armstrong, and more recently Raggy Omar. Tonight we are pleased to be hosting the lecture in association with the LSE Sociology Department. And our guest tonight is the wonderfully eminent author Amitav Ghosh, who will be giving the lecture entitled Belonging, Diaspora and Community, which will be followed by a conversation with Safraz Manzoor, who will introduce Amitav very shortly. We'll then go on to hear from Claire Alexander, an LSE academic and one of our Runnymede trustees. They're going to introduce a joint Runnymede and LSE higher education project, a knowledge transfer project called Bangla Stories. And you'll also be hearing from our new director, Rob Barclay. It's been a year of change for Runnymede. Sadly, we had to say goodbye to our director of 10 years, Micheline Lafleche. She left us financially robust, possibly the first time we've been financially robust in 40 odd years, and equally robust in a research sense. We also said goodbye to 3 wonderful and very long-standing trustees, Richard Stone, who played such a crucial and vital role in the Lawrence Inquiry, Kate Gavron, the most committed and active of trustees, both in terms of fundraising and checking every report that we've ever written, and my predecessor as chairman, Samir Shah, the inestimable Samir Shah. And we all owe to all of them a very big and considerable debt. We'll miss them all around the trustees' table. But let's begin the lecture. Please welcome Safraz, who will now formally introduce Amitav and his work.
Hello, good evening. I think this microphone's working okay. I don't need to tell you, but Amitav Ghosh is one of India's best-known writers, with books including The Circle of Reason, The Glass Palace, and most recently The Sea of Poppies. When he's not winning awards for his novels, he's also busy writing for, amongst others, Granta and The New Yorker. He was born in Calcutta in 1956, then studied in Britain, and now divided time between India and the United States. And I thought that with such a fluid existence, it's perhaps not surprising that you've chosen to talk about belonging, diaspora and community. The plan is that he's going to talk for about 20 minutes, then we're going to have a conversation, and then we'd like it to be a conversation in which you take part. So let's start by asking Amitav to start with your lecture, please.
Sure. Okay. Well, it's really a great pleasure to be here tonight to do this Jim Rose lecture. I actually came to England for the first time shortly after the Runnymede Trust was founded, and I remember, it played such an important part in public life in those days, and Jim Rose himself was such a visionary figure, so it's really an extraordinary pleasure to be here today. And I'd like to thank everyone who's been involved in inviting me here, Rob Barclay, Claire Alexander, Joya Chatterjee, and Clive for this wonderful introduction, so thank you very much. Now, I'm going to talk about I'm just going to tell you a little bit about something that happened to me many, many years ago. When I was a student studying for a degree in anthropology, somehow I ended up as doing a DPhil in anthropology at Oxford. It was one of those accidental things, and I found myself in Egypt, in a small village in Beira province. And it was as anthropologists do. I lived in a sort of mud hut, with the chickens and everything. But once a month I'd go off to Alexandria, and there was a bar I'd go to sometimes when I needed to take refuge from Egypt and its inhabitants. It was in a dockside neighborhood, not far from the lane where Lawrence Durrell had lived while writing the Alexandria Quartet. As bars go, this one was dim, subdued, and usually empty. The doorway was curtained with strings of colored beads, and inside there were a few tin tables and folding chairs. The year was 1981, and I was 25. I'd spent much of the last year living in a small village in the interior of Egypt. Although I'd made many friends, I was still inescapably an outsider. Sometimes, when the privations of village life became unendurable, I would escape to Alexandria for a weekend. Yet the bustle of the city, welcome as it was, often had the effect of heightening rather than assuaging my homesickness. What I needed was some contact with the familiar, a taste of remembered spices, a touch of home. But it seemed that chance had brought me to the one place in the world where there were no people from the Indian subcontinent. My compatriots, usually so ubiquitous, were nowhere to be seen in Alexandria. In this once cosmopolitan city of several 100,000 people, there was not a single Indian restaurant. One evening, I think it was in February 1981, I just seated myself and ordered a Stella beer when the bead string swung apart to admit a loud and boisterous party of some half-dozen men. I knew at once from their voices that they were from my part of the world. Did they speak to me first or I to them? I don't remember, but this I do remember, that they were not in the least bit surprised to come upon a lone Indian in a bar in Alexandria. We fell quickly into conversation, and I discovered that they were sailors on a merchant vessel registered in Panama. Their ship had docked in Alexandria after passing through the Suez Canal. Being scheduled to depart the next day, they decided to spend a few hours ashore. They were of varied provenance, some from northern India and some from the south. Although dissimilar in age, they were dressed alike in jeans and sneakers and pastel-colored golf shirts, the off-duty clothes of well-paid working men. They worked together in the ship's engine room, and it was clear that they were a tight-knit team. The oldest was in his late 40s, a wiry, alert man with an air of unspoken authority. He bore the official title of chief engineer, but there was something in his manner that reminded me of the headman of a village. In a while, the talk turned from them to me, and I told them about my experience of rural Egypt and the flea-infested room in which I lived. My complaints must have had a keener edge than I had intended, for they soon began to exchange glances. Presently, the chief took a gulp of beer and said in a tone of inquiry, "But if it doesn't suit you here, why don't you come away with us?" This was so unexpected that I was briefly silenced. "Yes, chalo hamare saath, come with us." Other voices were now joined to the chief's. "Yes, why don't you join us? There's plenty of room on our ship. We'll find you a bunk and you'll eat with the rest of us. The food's not bad." My head reeled. Surely they were joking. Was it really possible to join a ship's crew at a moment's notice? "What about the captain?" I said. "Wouldn't he have to give his permission?" "Oh," they laughed. "The captain doesn't need to know. He's from Cyprus. He doesn't know our names and he can hardly tell us apart. He'll never figure it out." "And if he does," said the chief, We'll tell him we signed you on. That's all there is to it. If we tell him, he'll accept it. He knows better than to make trouble for us. After all, we can make trouble for him too. Really? I said. But if you make trouble for your captain, wouldn't that be mutiny? The chief gave a great guffaw of laughter. Trouble doesn't have to be a big drama, you know. There are many ways of dealing with the gandu of a captain. He could trip in a hatchway or break his head while going down a ladder.